My oldest brother, I mean, I remember him having a significant conflict with my parents and, getting to fights and, whatever. And he did that in India too. I don't know. He was out of control, man.
He had no respect, believe me, for his parents or any elders. He had no respect for us. And I tried to help him. And he became abusive, so I said, get out of this house. What has transpired between me and him, what I've done, what I've said, and the impression he has because I'm an alcoholic, I don't think he's going to want to even see my face. He said he doesn't want to see my face, so fine.
And then my middle brother, he has his own stuff, right?
सचिन ने बहुत पैसे बर्बाद किए. ईशान, मैं कहना नहीं चाहती हूँ कि भाई क्या बहुत पैसा बर्बाद किया है.
He was doing drugs himself. His behavior towards her was not good. Hitting, punching, yelling, cursing. That's what she had to go through. And I was sad that what a foolish children they are.
When they were young kids, no real issues, nothing you identified early on. So I'm trying to understand where things went sideways.
Okay, try to look like a happy married couple.
Happy married couple.
I'm just kidding. Okay.
No, so the way this is going to work, you don't have to say anything if you don't want to.
No,
But-
because I cannot say happy married couple.
She's not happy with married life. Right?
Yeah, telling the truth.
They had a tumultuous relationship, I can tell you that. Because I remember them arguing quite a bit when I was a kid. I remember many nights going to bed like being upset or crying. Because it was a scary thing, like to see your parents yell and scream and like fight like that.
A lot of fights that would go on, like you said, be tears. Let me tell you something.
And I think it impacted the kids. I think it always does. I don't blame kids anymore, man. I blame the parents. I think kids out there in the world who are fucked up. You gotta look at their parents, because something happened in that household.
Happy birthday, dear Papa G. Happy birthday to you.
And people hide that shit, but you really have to look at the household.
The earliest memories I had was that there were no restrictions of my parents over their children. They would play, run around. The parents were busy doing their earnings, so there was no restrictions for one thing. And then there was no pressure of any kind to study anything.
Really?
Because there were no schools.
मतलब शैतानी भी बहुत करती थी मैं. शैतानी मीन्स पेड़ों पे चढ़ना, आम तोड़ना. हमारे यहाँ उसमें काफ़ी पेड़ लगे हुए थे मैंगो के. तो मैंगो देखा कि वो गार्डनर नहीं है तो चुपचाप जाके पेड़ पे चढ़ जाना. मेरे एक कज़न ब्रदर था, उनको घोड़ी बनाना, उसके ऊपर चढ़ के ऊपर चढ़ना.
We spent a lot of our time like flying kites and stuff, playing cricket or I would just goof. I would catch birds and a lot of. I remember like I would spend my time catching birds. I love animals, so
Yeah.
I would like catch pigeons and parrots, or like I would catch squirrels. I would take old mailboxes and put like food in them, and then set up a string and leave the door open. The squirrel would go inside. I would catch it. Just to keep ourselves occupied and do things like that.
We went to the bird sanctuaries. I mean, every child should experience this thing, because when we went to the sanctuaries, we were with nature, and you could sit on the edge and watch the sun come up. It was beautiful. We had water from the well, and the water was sweet. It's not like the water you drink out here anymore. The water would come straight out of the well. We would bathe in it. We would drink it. We had a blast.
And we all ate from the same plate, for the most part. And we all sat around. It was like 5 or 6 of us. So sometimes you'd have a group of 5 here and a group of 5 here. And my chachi, my dad's younger brother's wife, she had chula, is basically like a clay oven, and she'd cook the food, and she'd pass it like roti. You put that on the plate, and there was like 6 kids. Everybody would get one bite, like they all take a piece and eat it. But you know what? I'll tell you, man, the best memories of my life, because we all spent time together as a family. Like we all ate together. We all talked, and you were never alone.
Daddy's father was the chief of the village in Rawas. See, the chief would maintain the gold. We had 3 wells. He made sure that they were, one was for drinking, one for bathing and washing clothes, and the other one was for irrigation. So he had to maintain that. Water is important for life, right? And so he maintained that. If there was a problem, people would sit in the sand. He would sit on his platform, and he would listen to everybody's problem and solve the problem. He would help the villagers come together about things.
He was a very good person. He had very good cordial relations with everybody in the village. So if we went to the temple on our way back, he would stop at various shops. And each person who had a shop offered me something to eat without any charge. My father and my father's cousin sister, she was married in Jaipur, and a very good rich family. So she had come to the village, and she saw me playing around. And she was so attached to me for God knows what reason. She asked my father, "Who is this boy, little boy playing there?" And he said, "He's my son." "What is he doing?" She asked. "Nothing, there is nothing much to do here now. Whatever little education he could get, he got till he was 7 years old. After that there is no school, nothing. So, nothing." Then she said, "Then can I take him to Jaipur for education?" She offered to take me there with her. So my father said, "I have no problem. You want to take him, let him go with you." The first few days in Jaipur were a little different, were not so pleasant for me, because I missed my family in the village. In fact, the moment my father left me at Jaipur and went away from the house, I ran behind him without letting anybody know where I am going. And everybody in the family, Jaipur family, were worried, where is the boy gone? So they sent few people and they found me in the street somewhere. But after that, I got used to it. I had to live, I was living. But I knew sometimes I had an inner feeling that my father is going to come to Jaipur today from my village. So I would go out of the house. There was a platform there. I would sit there and wait for him to come. And then when I would see him coming, I would run inside the house, so that nobody knows that I was waiting for him. It was a strange feeling, because I didn't want to reveal my feelings to anybody I never revealed any feelings to anybody.
And why didn't you?
What was the use? What was the use?
Slowly, I think when I was 13 or 14, then my father got transferred to Udaipur, Rajasthan. Then I understand little bit because I used to go to school. We play around because we have very huge house, bungalow, like sarkari, the sarkari, matlab government give you to live to afsar. My father was afsar,
My grandfather was very educated. He was the conservator of forest in the state of Rajasthan, which is a very high position.
At the age of 62, retired from the Forest Service.
After he retired, he went to law school and became the lawyer for the local electrical board. Now, who does that?
He would help people that had no money. In India, to go to court and all that stuff. And he didn't care. Because he used to always say, he says, Sajan, in life there's two checks you will receive. One you deposit in Citibank, and the other one you deposit in the Bank of God. And the interest from him is a monster, comparatively. So in life, you're not just trying to do something to get money, you're doing something to get blessings. He would sit and meditate. Like, we would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning.
He'd wake our asses up. Like, I think it's great you want to get up at 4, but I don't want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I used to hate that. He'd fucking open the lights in the room. Our parents do that, which is mad annoying. Like, we were sleeping at 4 o'clock, he'd open up the light. And I'm like, fuck. I'm like, and then we'd have to get up, and then, we'd sit in his bed with him, like, dozing off like this, We had this big radio, it was this big, with tubes and stuff in it and everything. And we got BBC from England, for certain. He liked to listen to that in the morning. And then my grandmother would bring tea, and we'd all sit there, like in the wintertime, especially like for winter break, we'd all sit under a rajai, which is like a blanket. And we'd all, like, my brother Satch and myself and my grandfather, and then my grandmother would bring tea. And we'd always sit there and like drink tea, and I remember the BBC going on the back, And then I remember at nighttime, all the kids would gather around his bed.
And I used to massage his feet, because I love to take care of him. I love to be around him. I like to listen to his story.
And we'd all listen to his stories like for an hour, hour and a half, and then we'd all go to bed. And that's how we spent all our evenings every night in the summer. That's what we did. He had a heavy hand, but he also loved us just as much. He was a good man, honestly. Very smart, very good guy.
Me and Nanaji, we went, the kids, my dad was here at that time, we went for a walk to the park, and we wanted ice cream, and he said no, but, kids are kids, So he started walking in front, so we let him walk in the front, and we stayed behind, we bought the ice cream, we were eating it, and he turned around and saw us, obviously, so he would see it. We got home, he had a cane, he started whipping us, especially me,
Those are fucking like thick wooden canes, and I remember him getting his ass beat by that.
When Nanaji hit me with a cane and all that, all I could do is cry, and shout, you're in pain.
It wasn't like this today. Like if somebody raised their hand on my kid, like there wasn't any of that. Like anybody could kick your ass. Like if you were out of line, somebody could smack you. It could be your uncle, aunt, whatever. Nobody would say, "Oh, why'd you hit my kid?"
You keep it inside. I used to keep it inside. What can I do? What else? There's no solution.
It's not like my mother's going to complain to her husband, gee, my father beat the shit out of our son, or like, my brother's not going to go crying to my dad that, grandpa beat me.
They're bigger than you, they're stronger than you, so what can you do?
Do I think he did it out of vengeance or maliciousness? No. That's the only way he knew how to manage kids, I guess, But people don't realize that kind of trauma, man, that stays with you.
I don't know if my memory is reliable. I can give you like scattered, memories. One of the memories is that I used to read Hanuman Chalisa on the roof. I remember going to my village, Ravas. What else do I remember? Let's see. I don't remember what I used to do, but I think I was a bad kid or something. So my parents sent me to with this teacher master called Mangilal to his village with him for a year or so. And that was like I used to feel lonely. And I remember, our parents would, make a stand and say the times table. If you got it wrong, we got slapped hard and we were crying. My Bhuaji, as they say, my father's sister's son, Kuldeep. He made me take my pajama or whatever off, and he lay down on me naked, from the back. In the room when you enter the house, there's a room, big room right in the front, and there's a wooden, we call takhta, right? I was there. He goes, lie down. He tells, he just lay down on top of me naked, and I don't know what he was doing at that time, at that age. And after that, then, later on, it just keeps coming, the picture kept coming in my mind. And then I started to realize, when I became more mature, what he was doing. And especially nowadays, you hear about this kind of thing going on, sexual abuse and things like that. Then I started to realize, that he was a pervert, what he did was wrong. And at that time, I didn't really complain to anybody because I didn't know what he was doing.
You ready? 1, 2, 3. Don't fall on my floor. I don't have insurance. You okay? You okay? How many fingers? Mom, you have a cramp. Just relax. क्या पैर सो गए या मसल क्रैम्प हो रहा है? Are you have low salt? Does she have like a salt issue or something, or? Huh? Does she have a salt issue or something?
Salt issue क्या मतलब?
I mean, does she have like a electrolyte issue or something?
नहीं. इधर को बरसों से चल रहा है क्रैम्प्स का तो.
He looks so unaffected.
He's eating his pizza. It's funny.
Why does Babaji look so unaffected?
He has to be embarrassed. You're just saying that you're deeply concerned about your pizza. Mom, are you okay? I'll never forget. This is a fucked up story. So one time I remember he was sick or something had happened. I think it was in the hospital. I forget what it was. I think he was in the hospital. Yeah, he was in the hospital. I remember. I think my mom was there. And my mom went to see him. And I remember like she touched his hand, like his hand was on the bed. Like he was lying down. And he pulled his hand away. And I was like, wow, that's fucked up. But then I thought about if you're not affectionate to somebody, like you don't want to be touched by it. Now I don't know if that's reflexive, like it's almost like a person who's never had that, I guess, given to him, that it's an uncomfortable thing, it's almost like a person who's never been touched or has affection, so when you touch that person they get fidgety and uncomfortable. So I think their relationship is what it is, it's I don't know, I mean, do they love each other? I don't know, it's hard to say.
The circumstances under which I was married was because now I had become of age for marriage. And somehow a few relatives of mine suggested my name to them, to her father. That he's a good boy, he's a medical doctor, he'll be a doctor soon. you want to go and look at him? So he came to see me in the hospital and said they want to have me as the husband of their daughter. So it was arranged.
घर में आके मैंने नहीं सुना कोई बात कि भाई लड़का देखा है या कुछ है, बस वो जब ये रोक ना करते ना तब जाकर के उन्होंने मेरी मम्मी को कहा, आए थे जब, कि मैं ऐसे कर आया हूँ, तो तब पता लगा मेरे को.
Before the marriage was decided, somebody told my Buaji that the girl has certain marks on her face.
So my sister, other sister who died, she was little bit fair and good looking. So he thought maybe she.
Both the
she's the
sisters
girl.
were about only a year difference.
Huh?
Age, only 1 year difference in the age, and they both looked same height. I didn't know which one is supposed to be my wife.
So he fall in love by mistake. That time, I was 16, 17, how I feel. A little bit, like my heart was jumping,
Okay, that's
what happened.
because he was so handsome, or what?
Oh, he was handsome, I don't say he, but he has two
To what?
B. So that's why I didn't know that time.
To B?
To be? To what?
So
What's a 2B?
to B means
B means what?
You could say it either.
but it will record in the
Yeah, this is.
camera.
You say
no,
the truth.
Everybody will
You
listen.
can say
No,
whatever
you
you
have
have.
to be honest.
Yeah, honest.
मेरे को ये नहीं पता था
That
कि
is
मेरा
smokes.
होने वाला हस्बैंड
Smokes.
स्मोक करता है और मतलब पान चबाता है, ये मुझे नहीं पता था. मेरे को पैसे से नहीं था कि भाई वो कमाता नहीं है, कम कमाता है या क्या करता है, लेकिन इनकी टू हैबिट्स से ना मैंने होल लाइफ मतलब ऐसे बिताई है. अब जाकर के थोड़ा सा हुए हैं तब ये बुढ़ा हो गए. But it's okay. We have very happy life.
No, you don't.
No
but
problem. शादी के पहले क्या हुआ मुझे नहीं पता है, लेकिन शादी के बाद यही था, कभी उस फ्रेंड को देखने चले गए, कभी उसको चले गए, और रात के 10 बज गए, 10:30 बज गए, आ ही नहीं रहे. मैं बैठी हूँ खाना खाने के लिए इंतज़ार में कर रही हूँ. ना फ़ोन भी नहीं था उस वक़्त, ना कभी इन्होंने ये फील नहीं किया कि वो इंतज़ार कर रही होगी, कि भाई वो भी इंतज़ार कर रही होगी मेरे लिए, खाने के लिए. ये है मतलब लापरवाही से ही है, जहाँ मर्जी चले गए, जिसके साथ चले गए, बस ये. आई हैड वेरी बैड टाइम, बट आई क्राई, आई लाव, आई टॉक, बट इट वॉज ओके. बिकॉज सिस्टर ब्रदर एवरीबडी वॉज लिविंग विथ हिम. एंड फिर गांव से कोई ना कोई आता, कभी मदर रहती थी मेरे साथ, तो कोई ना ये इसने मेरी शिकायत करते, इसे ये कर दिया, खाने को नहीं दिया, इसे ये नहीं बनाया इसने, तो फिर ये गुस्सा होते थे. उस वक़्त योगेंद्र हो गया, तो अब बताओ एक छोटे से बच्चे को मैं संभालूंगी कि घर के काम, मतलब इन्होंने ये नहीं किया कि भाई इसको भी कोई जरूरत. और मैं नौकरों में ऐसे आई थी ईशान, मैंने कभी एक गिलास पानी का बैठी खाट पे, मेरे को वो बेचारे पानी पिलाते थे, कहते खाना, क्योंकि अफसर थे मेरे फादर, तो खाना बनाने वाला, कपड़े धोने वाला, सब काम मतलब करने वाले थे. उसमें आई. और यहाँ आने के बाद मैंने मतलब क्या नहीं किया, मतलब सब काम किया. खैर उसमें तो कोई नहीं, काम करने में तो कोई हर्ज नहीं, लेकिन जो स्वभाव सहा है ना, वो ईशान मेरे को बड़ी तकलीफ़ देता अभी भी है ना. कई बार मैं सोचती हूँ ना, कई बातें मेरे को बड़ी तकलीफ़ होती है कई बार, फिर सोचती हूँ ये मेरा प्रारब्ध है, यही मानते हैं ना अपने, ये मेरे पिछले जन्मों का कोई कर्म है. आई प्रे टू गॉड, प्लीज़ इफ़ यू ट्रांसफ़र his to other city beside Jaipur, it will be okay. But he said, okay, wait. So I wait few years, and then we have our own
House.
house he
I built one house.
इन्होंने अच्छी कॉलोनी में हाउस बनाया, सब कुछ बनाया। उसके बाद भगवान ने मेरी सुन ली और उन्होंने मेरे को बंसल साहब को भेजा। डॉक्टर बंसल है ना।
My friendship with Bansal started in my post-graduation period. He was also appearing for the post-graduation examination. I was also, and we somehow met at a common friend's house who was also appearing for the examination.
I appreciate कि उन्होंने जा कर के है ना, जब मेरी हालत देखी और मैं रोने लग गई, सच बता रही हूँ। I was crying. Then he said, "Don't worry, I will call you." मैं जाके है ना वहाँ लेटर भेजूँगा।
We were friends, so he said, "Dr. Sharma, what? I have received 2 application forms to go to USA. I want you to fill out one. I'll fill out the other."
ये कहा, ये आएगा कि नहीं आएगा। मैंने कहा भेज के तो देखो। मैंने ये कहा, मैंने कहा भेज के तो देखो। तो मतलब भगवान जब करना होता अच्छा।
I have no idea when she talked like that with Dr.
ठीक है ना। नहीं, वो आए थे मिलने के लिए।
आए होंगे।
जो भी है, मैंने अपने मन का जो गुबार था निकाला, ठीक है ना। भगवान की कृपा से 1 महीने बाद ही उनका लेटर वहाँ आ गया, जयपुर में, है ना। इनसे बात करी, सब कुछ है जो भी है।
I didn't even know what I will do in USA, nothing. I had no money to come here, but I took the examination anyway with him. And he was good enough to pay for my expenses to go to Delhi to take the examination.
So this is the first time you're hearing that she talked to Dr. Bansal and he's the reason.
No, I didn't know that she talked to Dr. Bansal.
He didn't have books, and he didn't have people to buy him books for studying. Nanaji came along and tried to help him. He would go to the library. He would walk miles to the library to get the books. And when he studied them, he retained it up here because he couldn't take it back home. When he came to America, let me tell you, your grandfather, really smart man. Bansal Uncle Ji and everybody invited him, right? Arya and all of them. So he came in and you have to take that ECFMG whatever test. So it's an 8-hour long or more test. So they all sitting in the test, and Daddy's sitting there, and if in half an hour he was finished. In half an hour he was finished. Because in India you have to write prose, you have to write like, oh yeah, here there's multiple choice and all that kind of stuff. He would knock that shit out in I'm sorry, see my language.
You could curse if you like.
Knocked it out in half an hour, and he got up, and Bansal and all them looking at him like, "Don't give up, Sharma. Don't give up. Vidyasagar, don't give up." And they thought he was giving up. He passed and aced the exam.
He passed, I passed better than he did. And then after he passed, he got the certificate, he came over here. Then he was visiting 2 years afterwards. He came here, he visited. So I was not doing anything with my certificate. I got the certificate too, but I never thought of coming to USA by myself. So he came visiting us, and I was sitting in my hospital on a chair with my legs on the table, relaxing. And he comes and says, "What are you doing here? Why don't you come over there?" I said, "Dr. Bansal, I don't know what to do. Believe me, I don't know anything about how to come to America. Besides, I don't have money to go." So he said, "Don't worry. First of all, you should go there, all right? But and I will make sure that you get a job before you come there." He used to work in TB Sanatorium, and he had a patient who was very thin, and so his vitals were very hard to discern, hard to notice. So they took him to the morgue, So my father said, "Where's my patient?" So my father went to the morgue, and And he saw that he had the vitals there. He had him brought back. He treated him, and later on he became, pretty healthy. So he cared about his patients. A lot of the doctors would have said, "Okay, fine."
Actually, my dad was so well known at the time because he knew a lot of people in medical school. He did a lot of good things. A lot of people, he helped people for free and stuff.
So there was this poor guy who came there, trying to give my father money for his treatment. My father said no. And he started trying to give him again. My father said no, don't give. But he was persistent, so he dropped the money on the floor. My father said, "Pick the money and don't come back if you're going to do this." So that was a good thing, because he cared about a poor person not to take money.
He had a huge following. I'll never forget. I remember that my grandparents and my mama and all these people had come. The whole house was full. There must have been at least 50 people in the house. There were like deluxe and garlands and mithai and stuff. And I remember going to Jaipur airport back then. And it wasn't a big airport, man, but let me tell you something. That entire airport was packed.
At that time, everybody came, to send him off. There was no security thing, because they had this ladder you could climb into the airplane.
People come all the way almost to the runway. Like there used to be just a mobile fence there. There was a crowd of people. I've seen more people at my dad's place than the presidential, but no lie. There must have been at least 50 to 100 people literally lined up in the airport just to see him off.
So I guess it was a big, event. And he arranged for a tutor, English tutor, there. I had maybe I knew one or two words of English, just my name probably, but nothing else. So we're learning English, I guess a cat is brown, or, see Johnny run, or BS like that, I guess.
Came to America, I was like, wow, you know what I mean? I was up in the cockpit in the airplane. I'm hanging out with the pilots. I'm having lunch with the captain. Yogen is thrown up in the back. My hand is laid out, in the seat. I'm all over the place. I'm like up and down the plane and everything. Cause I'm like, wow.
Like, you see cars and these bridges, and it was pretty impressive. Like, it really imprinted on my mind.
So what the teacher said, "Oh, in America, the roads are made up of gold." I didn't know how extensive the road system in America was at that time. I said, that's a lot of gold, man. So I come here, I'm disappointed, man. It sells asphalt. There's no gold road, So there was misinformation.
So, from your point of view, for each of your three children, what are some qualities that you remember about them from a young age? And what are some memories you had with them?
They have all good qualities.
Oh, I was a pain in the ass. I was a troublemaker. I wasn't a mean kid. I was just mischievous. Like I would always do stuff that was like I thought was funny, and I carried that to my whole life. I think I probably shouldn't have, like, as I got older, but like I would just do stuff to cause trouble, in a mischievous way. Never to hurt anybody, but just pranks and stuff.
Just a collective thing that all of you guys were, or you just felt you were more mischievous than others?
We all got into trouble.
And they are children, that. They are not perfect.
We used to go fly kites, and part of flying the kite is you have a chakri, which is like holds the thread, right? So Sachin, who's my middle brother, he wanted to fly the kite, and he wanted me to hold his chakri, and I wanted to fly my own kite, and he got really upset. He tried to throw me off the roof.
But they were good children,
My uncle Chachaji was going to the store or something. He didn't want to take me. I was on the roof, so I jumped from the roof to the ground.
What in that moment was going over you?
Yeah, of course. If you're not taking me, I'm getting angry. If you never take me, I'm going to jump. I told him I'm going to jump. If you don't take me, I'm going to jump.
And he didn't believe you. He's like, no way, he's gonna.
No, so he didn't believe me, but I proved him wrong. So
Good for you. Looking back on that moment now, would you consider yourself, even that young, 6 or 7 years old, like an extremely angry child? And if so, where do you think that came from?
yeah, I think in the beginning, initially I was angry, Yeah, and I learned anger from people around me.
बड़ा परिवार था ना, बहुत बड़ा परिवार था, तो तुम्हें पता ही है सबका स्वभाव, सबके आदतें, सबको कुछ ना कुछ प्रॉब्लम मतलब कहीं ना कहीं से होती थी, तो वो ले दे करके मेरी मदर पे चिल्लाते हैं। नॉट ऑल द टाइम, बट व्हेन देखते थे ना घर के अंदर ये क्या हो रहा है, ये तब फिर मतलब।
My Chachaji was the worst, you know. He would hit his wife frequently, you know, slap her, and then scream at her, and then throw his kids onto this, you know, cart that made up of, I don't know how to pronounce it, hemp, you know, those, you know, hemp, you know, round hemp strings, they make a cart. Okay, he used to throw them on there. He would come down the stairs this way. There were two-sided stairs. If you go down the stairs this way, the kids would come up the other way. They would try to avoid him because he used to get angry. He would, you know, hit him. He would hit his wife all the time.
गुस्सा इनको आता था, चीज़ें फेंक देते थे कई बार।
My father used to get angry. You know, I don't know if he, when he was in India, if he ever hit my mother. I don't remember. Maybe he did. I don't know. But he certainly got angry at her.
Are you realizing in that moment, okay, this is normal behavior, I should be partaking in this, or did something feel off to you about that?
See, at that time, my mind is not matured emotionally. I just copy. You know, it just becomes part of you. You don't realize whether it's right or wrong to do it. If it's right or wrong to get angry or not. You know, you just get angry, react to situations.
So looking back on that time period, like how much of that do you think maybe had an impact on the kids?
When I was really upset with what was going on at home and with the way my father was treating my mother, I would want to be invisible. And I would be in the house, invisible. I'm standing right there, nobody can see me. Where's the chain? Where's the chain? Looking for me all over the place. I'm right there, you know, and nobody can see me.
Like I never spoke to my parents about anything. They thought I was like, I think they thought I was like mentally deficient or something because I would never talk in the house. Like I kept everything to myself.
You say something to daddy, daddy, you know, blah, blah, blah. Ah, you don't want to tell him nothing. Why would you want to tell a man something and you go turn around and yell at you and scream at you? I'd be like, oh, shit, I'm not going there. You know what I mean? I'd rather just deal with it myself. I'll go get a drink and I'll just sit down and I'll think about it. You know what I mean? I'll go smoke a joint.
ये इनकी नेचर में है और ये आज भी है, दूसरों के ऊपर तो इनका बहुत है मन।
He focused a lot on his friends, for example. Like if people come visit from India and they would like stay for a fucking week at a time or a month at a time, which would, I think is disruptive to a family, but you know, that was kind of his idea of norm, I guess. You know, I know it affected my middle brother and certainly my oldest brother. I think it affected the most, you know.
I was in charge of the liquor downstairs. You know, we had a bar down there. When we had parties, guess who was in charge of liquor?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm talking and this Uncle G, that Uncle G, and fix him a drink, and they're like, have a drink with me, such and so. Okay, oh, sure. I'll quietly, you know, have a little sip. And it started progressing, you know what I mean, from that point on.
My father used to drink, so we got curious, you know, about drink. You know, he quit, but maybe I took it too far.
They resented it, I think. And I guess rightfully so, you know, I mean, people come into your life and, you know, these are just friends. Because they would hang out at night, and my dad would come home from work, and, you know, they'd hang out, they'd talk, and they'd drink until like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, it's not normal, you know, I would say it's not. I wouldn't do that for my kids. I wouldn't introduce that element to my kids. But my dad did that because, you know, that's just the way he grew up. Like that was, I guess, like people did that in India, I guess, you know, in his circle of friends, you know, like they sort of did stuff like that.
ये नहीं है कि उन्होंने पैसा नहीं दिया, वो तो कमाते तो चेक मैं ही देती थी बना करके, स्कूल का है, कॉलेज का, जो भी। लेकिन इन्होंने कभी बैठा के प्यार से कि बेटा बैठ, कैसी तुम्हारी चल रही है पढ़ाई, क्या हाल चाल है।
He didn't even go to my graduation.
High school.
Yeah. Any graduation. Along the way. None. Who doesn't want to see like their father, you know, at their graduation? Or at a good, something good, DECA, when I was working with DECA. and I did some events. I got awards and stuff. He wasn't there. I wasn't upset because I didn't know whether he'll go to graduation and start yelling at mommy in front of people, in front of my friends. I didn't want that. I couldn't have it.
When I was going to junior high school, Benwick Junior High School, when I was doing great, I became stronger, when my dad tried to hit me on, house in Cherry Lane, I think it was Cherry Lane or Robinson Street. So I held his hand. I said, don't hit me. So he took it wrong. I just was trying to tell him, don't hit me. But he said, he picked up a shoe or something. I said, go ahead, hit me. I mean, he's trying to make me feel guilty, telling me to hit him. I wasn't trying to hit him. I'm just holding your hand. There's no need to hit a 16-year-old kid. You could talk to them. You could reason with them.
Some people might take that, maybe deep down it might have hurt me more. But I had to learn to kind of try to let it go. And it's a lot to let go of. Day after day, year after year, new things hit you, and you turn sour, you can turn, other ways. But it wasn't easy.
I mean, you blame your kids when they grow up, and the way they behave, the way they act. You blame them. You find fault with them. Why don't you look at yourself? How you treated them from the childhood, how you reasoned with them, how much love you gave them, and self-analyze all that stuff. Yeah, every parent in India gives you clothes and place to stay. Maybe education money and all that, but that's not love by itself. So if you want to show anger, you're going to drink, you're going to do other things, you're not going to care, you're not going to show love. That's what the kids will learn.
So looking back on that time period, how much of that do you think maybe had an impact on the kids?
I don't think that had any impact, because if there was impact, then other boys would have the same impact. Mahendra could have had the same impact.
He could have, yeah.
He didn't.
Well, what if he had? I mean, 2 out of 3 of the boys.
The 2 boys.
कैसे हुए ताऊ जी? क्योंकि इनकी निगलेक्ट की वजह से। सचिन क्यों हुआ? इनके ना ध्यान देने से। महेंद्र क्यों है? महेंद्र थोड़ा सा बच गया, थोड़ा सा वो डिफरेंट नेचर का हो गया.
There's a lot of accusation that happens, right? So my mother would constantly blame my father for it. She'd constantly throw it in his face that, the kids are fucked up, or your son is doing this because you never paid attention to the house and you never did this, and
And if both of you are raising your children, right? So Babaji has some responsibility in terms of how his kids turned out, in terms of being angry and drinking alcohol and all of that. Where do you feel that you as a mother may have imparted some negative values on your kids?
From my mother, I learned OCD, obsessive compulsive problems. It is true, because they say, hurry up, we have to push it, chala de.
जल्दी बुला के रखा है, नीचे बुला रहे हैं. जल्दी जा दौड़ के.
All throughout the childhood, and so this has become a problem for me. To my wife and everybody, hurry up, we have to go, it becomes a problem.
And why did I go towards women? Because I need a mother's figure. I need somebody I can love, I can hug, and they provided that. Things that are missing at home, you're going to go out and find.
She thinks she's right. When she makes a decision, she will never listen to anybody. She just does whatever she wants to do. Once it comes into her head, she will just do that.
Who would you talk to?
I don't talk to nobody.
Anybody who listens to her, she just talk about the family, talk about me, what's going on between us.
You wouldn't tell anybody else what was going on in the house?
She will tell Mrs. Jan, she will tell everybody.
Outside तो मैं किसी से भी बात नहीं करती, कहीं नहीं आती जाती ना बात करती.
And I told her not to say this to anybody because it makes our family look bad and they make fun of us.
मतलब मेरी सिस्टर है या कोई ये बात निकल गई मुँह से तो पर ये ऐसी बात नहीं करता कोई भी.
So you're saying once in a while it would come out?
come out once a while, but not now because क्योंकि अब कोई आता जाता ही नहीं है ना.
Not now, I'm saying during that time. Were you talking to like other people or outside?
And you're just doing it because they'll give you an ear to hear you and you feel like you have a friend.
Actually, I had a period where I think I don't want to use the word hated her, but I really deeply resented her. And I think that manifested itself as like I would fly off the handle with her over the littlest things. I would like go onto a tirade and I would just like curse her out. Like literally, can you imagine like a kid growing up in an Indian environment where you're not supposed to use bad words? I mean, I would tell her to go fuck off or like, you know, like just like lose my shit. And I did that for a while. Like even for my dad, like I would just lose my shit, like, you know. And I think it's just because I had enough of it, you know. You know, 27 years of just constant mind fucking. I think it broke me. I just like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. And so when conversations went a certain way, I just felt like there was the same stubbornness or the same lack of, you know, lack of vision to see what the problem was. It just led me to extreme frustration and I would just like burst out.
And if both of you are raising your children, right? So Babaji has some responsibility in terms of how his kids turned out, in terms of being angry and drinking alcohol and all of that. Where do you feel that you as a mother may have imparted some negative values on your kids?
मैं क्या करती, कुछ नहीं कर सकती थी मैं.
And so what interested you in flying? Like, why did you want to do that?
Because we used to go to the airport, so you know, when we dropped my father off coming to USA for the first time, I saw the airplane, you know, the people wearing the uniform, they're looking, you know, good, I guess. It's not only the women like uniforms, but so it was, yeah, so I mean, I was impressed with, you know, flying thing. So I said, okay, let me go to flying school, you know, learn something. So I applied, I took the exam and, you know, I passed, I went there.
काम मैं कर लेती हूँ, अब सारा घर का काम मैं करती हूँ, बाहर का करती हूँ सब है, लेकिन मेरे को कुछ याद नहीं रहता, इसलिए मैं पढ़ाई में कमज़ोर हो गई बिल्कुल. तो इस वजह से मैं सुनती हूँ, मेरे को कुछ ध्यान नहीं रहता, मैं क्या करूँ.
So you have a problem remembering stuff.
रिमेंबर कि हाँ, और ये धीरे धीरे अब ज़्यादा हो गई. अब मेरे को एक अक्षर तुमने अभी बता देगा, मेरे को कुछ ध्यान नहीं रहेगी.
Or I would read, I would keep reading, and then still after a while I'll, you know, forget it.
And did any of your kids have that problem?
Huh?
Did your kids also have that problem?
No.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, I can analyze things, but I have difficulty remembering things for a long time.
मेरे को ये प्रॉब्लम क्यों हुई है, डर के जैसे डर बैठा होता है ना आदमी के, तो वो बचपन से जो डर बैठा रहता है ना, वो आदमी का निकलता नहीं है.
I was scared that if I don't remember things, like for the flying the ground school, I was having difficulty remembering. I said it's going to be a problem, you know, flying an airplane. I mean, in a ground you can make a mistake, up there you can't, you know. So I said, okay, let's go medicine. I guess the medicine would be easy, but it's not easy. It's so much to remember, you know.
Gotcha. So you were worried about endangering people as a pilot?
And mostly endangering my life.
Mostly endangering your life. But medicine is dealing with the health of people, right? So did you worry about that as well, or?
I didn't think that far ahead. I just said, let me just, because I had to do a career. I was worried about what I'm going to do in the future. How am I going to survive? How am I going to make a living? So, same thing, started to memorize that, but you can't, you know. I studied as much as I could. I took the test, did the best as I could.
At what point do you meet Neera?
Oh, Neera. Why did I meet her, God? I should have met her. I met her here when she came from India.
योगेंद्र अकेला रहता था, कोई बोलने वाला नहीं, करने वाले, तो वो अकेलापन फील करता था, तो धीरे धीरे उसके साथ दोस्ती हो गई.
I think she was getting bored too, with, you know, so she needed some company. So we met at a party and we started talking, you know. And then I passed a note to her, she read it, then she passed it to me. That's how we got it.
So you started writing love letters to each
Yeah.
other. And did you feel genuine love towards her, or you were also just bored in passing time?
At that time, I felt, attraction, I guess, love, that, and I liked her. I was, from my side, it was, love. But with her, over time, she, forgot about it, the love. But her father found out about it later on. He tried to keep us apart, but we found ways still.
We used to walk all the way out to Bayside where they live from Flushing, and I would go with him to see her. And Marcy would be like, hello, Satan. She loved me. Mrs. Bunsen, she loved me to death. And so she's like, sit down, come here and eat, this and that. She would focus on me, and they'd be hiding in the bathroom talking and doing whatever the hell they were doing.
He would keep an eye on her, so let's get together, and he sent her to India.
And how did you feel about that?
Well, I went to medical school to India, right?
But did you say there was also a stipulation from her dad that he wanted her to marry a doctor?
Yeah, I'm going to marry her to a doctor, yeah. So being stupid, I figured, I should be a doctor so I can marry her, For, like I told you, I failed the PMT the first time, pre-medical test, right? So then I used to study 8 hours on my Nanaji's roof, looking at the chapter. First chapter I read today, before I read the second, I review the first. Then, just kept doing it the whole year, and I passed the test.
I think he's the smartest out of all of us. But, he partied a lot. Like when he went to India, and, he was out of control, man, sometimes, But he made it through med school, He made it through med school, became a neurologist. Very smart guy, man.
I don't know how I got through medical school. I have no idea what went through that. Okay? Because there's a lot of memory required. It's hard for me to remember. There are kids who just read once or twice, or they could go right through, and to me it was a struggle. And same thing, but I took the exam here. I used to repeat the books, questions answered again and again. In the first year of medicine residency, you're examining a patient, and then I didn't remember what the hell was going on. It was like very confusing to me. Okay, I couldn't remember certain things or do, okay, what test to order, what medicine to give. I was like all confused. Whole throughout the year, I used to pray to God that my beeper doesn't ring at night. Please God, no, the beeper doesn't ring. I don't get called for emergency or something. It was a very hard year, man, and I don't know how I passed through. Went through. They were ready to kick me out. I'm not joking. They were ready to kick me out, but luckily I had applied to Stony Brook by then. So in Stony Brook I did okay. Like I said, neurology is more mathematical. You remember the anatomy. I figured out a trick. If you know the anatomy, you could, locate the lesion. So I got a little better control. And even at Stony Brook, I used to carry books and say, God, I hope I don't get called.
My brother came back from medical school. He got married, and then, that was another, controversy with the family and the marriage, he was never accepted to that family, unfortunately.
So you knew your in-laws were going to have a problem, but you got married anyway. Like, why was that?
Because I thought she loved me and I loved her. We were marrying her, not the in-laws. I don't care about the in-laws, They don't like it too bad,
And so he was always treated differently and as an outsider, and it was, he was isolated, and I don't know. I don't think she loved him, and she married him, but it created problems, and then he started drinking, and that was a whole mess there, and this escalated into a lot of bad stuff,
And were you a fan of them getting married, or you didn't like it?
नहीं, मैं तो पसंद इसलिए था कि भाई हमारी जान पहचान की फैमिली है, और मतलब अच्छे लोग हैं, मतलब फैमिली अच्छी है सब तरह से, और सबकी रिस्पेक्ट करने वाले हैं, सब कुछ है और सब है, तो इस वजह से है। पर ये नहीं मुझे पता था कि नीरा ताई जी घर में बिल्कुल ही ध्यान नहीं देगी।
I remember he used to be isolated. She would go, every weekend she'd be at her parents' house, leave on a Friday, come back on a Sunday. He was stuck here by himself. That's not a marriage. The kids would be there, and, where you spend time with your kids and stuff. It's just.
She goes, can I go to Italy, by myself with my parents? I said, go ahead. Because I know she didn't want me to come with her. So I said, go ahead. So she went to Italy by herself. And didn't take me. And then went to Alaska. She didn't take me. So it's okay.
भाई ये आपका घर हो गया, शादी के बाद में ये घर होता है आपका, ठीक है वो वहाँ आओ जाओ, वो तो हम भी आते जाते हैं, लेकिन पहला घर हमारा ये, हमारी ड्यूटी है सबको देखने की, अपनापन मतलब लाने की, वो इन्होंने किया नहीं। और ये वहीं पियर में वहीं बैठी रहती थी, तो ताऊ जी अकेला फील करते थे, तो धीरे 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 इनके आपस में दूरी होती गई।
Slowly, the household was chaotic. I was drinking because of my uncertainties and insecurities. Later on, it got worse because then I started to think maybe she's cheating on me and all that, because she was pregnant for the 4th time, and she got an abortion, okay, without telling me, and she said to me, "You made me feel like a bitch." Meaning she got pregnant 4 times because you know how bitches have many babies? Because you made me feel like a bitch. I said, what do I say? It's fucking insulting, So she goes, well, why don't you get a vasectomy? I said, why don't you get a tubal ligation? Oh no, it's easier for you. So like a stupid person, I go get a vasectomy. Now I have a problem, right? So she's cheating on me, okay? And she's going to different places, Greece and all, and I know she's cheating on me. I can tell to the credit card records. They're staying in the same room, ordering drinks, She bought him a pen from Macy's with his inscription on it. I know all that they're cheating, and I had a recording of it. And plus, when I said to her, I said, you owe me at least one. Did you cheat on me? And she admitted it, Then I asked her, I said, he doesn't have a vasectomy and he fucks you. How do you prevent having a baby? So she goes, he takes it out on time. I said, I could have done that too. You're having sex with a guy who doesn't have tubal, a vasectomy, and there's a risk of pregnancy, but you made me get a vasectomy. That's the kind of person, she is.
His wife was also like that. Neera is like that too. She would say things which were insulting to me also. But I didn't, I said, listen, if you think that is the case, I won't come down to your house and I won't participate in any discussions here. So, you take care of your problems now.
That whole thing, just deteriorated into like a really bad situation. It's unfortunate because the kids pay the price for it.
Say hi.
Hi.
What happened?
I got nicked a little bit, man.
It affected them. They became, I think, depressed. They were unhappy. I think it set a bad example because we were arguing with them. Then I drank. That had a bad example. Sometimes I think Pawan turned out the way he did because of, me.
The older ones, psychiatric issues, and then going to therapy. And I remember taking time off to go to some place upstate Massachusetts with them.
Vivek is okay, but he keeps quiet. Sagar hardly calls. He thinks, he says he doesn't like when I drink. I left a message, he hasn't replied. But I told him I don't drink, like I used to. I mean, it's occasionally, once in a while, but.
I think both those kids would not be messed up today had she put some effort into the marriage, and clearly my brother had put some effort into the marriage, honestly. That's the tragedy of the whole thing. Those two, they were good kids, and their lives got ruined, unfortunately,
But he was drinking too much. I didn't want him to come to my house at all. So he stayed for a few days, then became very upset about his bipolar condition. He gets up and started telling me, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. Hey, listen, I did whatever wrongs I have done, I am paying for it. But why are you so worried about that? Why don't you take care of yourself first? I yelled at my father. I got, if you call the altercation, I did try to apologize, and I went there a couple of times, and it didn't go well. So, and then I told him to get out, and since then I don't want him there, and I haven't allowed him in my house since then.
We used to live in Flushing, and in the building where we lived, there was a black lady with her daughter. Her husband was dead, and we used to go over. She used to make me cookies and stuff And Dad used to go pick her up. We had a Toyota Corona at the time, a two-door Corona, and so in school I had wrote a essay, why the world hates me. Yeah. And we were getting in the car and everything else, so I just hid it in the glove compartment right there. Put it in the glove compartment, and she was sitting up in the front. She's like, oh, don't sit back there, come and sit up here. I sat up in her lap, and she opened the glove compartment. She found the letter, she found my prose. She said, what, honey? I love you, I love you, I love you. So that's when I felt like, that thing, like the extension like Daddy had from outside the family. But it wasn't just for hanging out and getting high and everything. There were people that really loved you. Like right now, I could say I'm living in a different world when I come here, when I go outside of here. Because people actually love me out there because I'm doing things for them.
ये घर से बाहर रहने लग गया, साल 2 साल दिखता ही नहीं था। अब ये जब ताऊ जी की शादी हुई तब ये यहाँ नहीं था ही नहीं यहाँ पे।
And then he disappeared and then went to North Carolina and then living here. He actually left the house. He, disappeared for like weeks, months at a time. Who knows what he was doing.
What do I want to do here? You know what I mean? I need somebody to talk to. I'm going to go somewhere else and talk to somebody. That's why I wasn't worried about where I would stay, because I would go and Grandma, I can't go home, this and this and this happened, and I'll be in Gates Avenue in Brooklyn, at this lady's house. She came from Greenville, South Carolina. She bit off the mayor's ear when she was little, and she had to leave and come to run through New York. Black families have to do a lot of different things. And so I would go to her. She had a big thing of Smirnoff, and she said, just to fill it up and let the kids come, because she didn't want the kids on the street doing drugs and stuff like that. She was like that. She was a good person. She was a real good human being. A lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people have a good heart and whatnot, just because you're colored or whatever, it doesn't matter. She's like, just stay here until you want. I don't want you out on the street. I don't want you getting hurt out there. Stay here, have a drink, whatever, eat, whatever, no problem. So I kind of had that.
बाहर भागने लगे, बाहर उल्टे सीधे लोगों से दोस्ती हो गई।
He got in trouble, he got arrested, in North Carolina. Then I remember one time he got a call from the police or whatever, and there was a whole thing, and my dad had to go there, and he was scared to go by himself, I think. So he dragged me along. I remember he and I one time left here, and we drove all fucking night, man. We ended up, we went to North Carolina overnight. I remember sleeping in a gas station in the parking lot because we were so tired from driving.
I had to go get him out of on bail, and he didn't have, what am I doing?
My family was turning against me, against my friends.
He dropped out of school. He's hanging out with his friends, and he got mixed in with all this, bad elements, so.
And I was like, I'm never getting married. I used to tell Chandamosi, I said, listen, I'm going to have a baby with every woman in the world. We're going to take up to the United Nations and tell the world, if we can get along as a family, what the hell's wrong with you?
मैंने ये सोचा, मैंने कहा कि अगर शादी कर देंगे ना इसकी, तो ये बंद जाएगा मीन्स कि कंपनी हो जाएगी कोई, तो सही सही रास्ते पे आ जाएगा.
Well, I told Dadi Ma, I said, don't get him married. Don't, why are you marrying him? So she goes, well, after marriage, sudhar jayega, he will get better, this and that. I said, look, after marriage, nobody gets better. It can get worse because you have more stress from the marriage. Okay? Marriage doesn't stop anybody from drinking, taking drugs, or behaving the way they do. Okay? It only gets worse.
I don't need to get married, what do I need to get married for? I'm having fun and whatnot. But then...
my mother sort of coerced him to doing it, and
So I said, okay. If I've done all these bad things in my life, let me do something that's going to be positive or something that they can appreciate, that they'll really appreciate culturally and everything too. So I said, okay, you can arrange a marriage. But it's not going to be just anybody. Then I met Anju. And we walked outside. We went around the block a couple of times. I told her straight up, I said, listen, I don't know, you sure about this? Because I'm not the kind of person, I don't know if you really want to marry me. Oh, no. She was in love with me. And she was beautiful. At that time she was slim, she was athletic, she was doing shows and I was doing shows.
But you're giving her a heads up ahead of time, like, hey, like, I'm not about
I'm telling her everything. We walked around the block, I'm like, look, I may not be the guy, you know what I'm saying?
And it came out to be true because she got him married, okay? Maybe the first couple of days were okay. But then Sachin started abusing, your mother. Hitting, punching, yelling, cursing. That's what she had to go through. And whose fault is it? It's my mother's fault too. Because I told her, don't get her married. Okay, don't get him married. But she did. She doesn't listen.
तैयार हो गए तो शादी हो गई. शादी होने के बाद में जो बिहेवियर रहा ना सचिन का, वो मेरे को भी पसंद नहीं आया. मैं सच बता रही हूँ. पर वो क्या करता, क्योंकि वो ड्रिंक करता था और ड्रग लेता होगा. आई डोंट नो. मैं तेरे से सारी बात करी, तू अब समझदार हो गया सब. लेकिन यह है कि उस वक़्त तो इसको भूत सवार था. इसने बहुत नुकसान किया है ईशान. इतना नुकसान किया है. घर की चीज़ें बेची हैं, कहीं कुछ करा है, कहीं कुछ करा है.
That became a shit show, and and then he was home, and then he was away, and there was obviously emotional abuse at the time, and and then dealing with all those things, and his interference with the business, and his wife, your mom, trying to sort of start a business and doing all that, and he was very disruptive in that entire process. A lot of chaos in the house, honest to God. I mean, I remember getting called 3 o'clock in the morning because there's a fight in the house. Driving over there and there's like shit scattered in the. I remember one time there was like paper they threw in the driveway in the fucking patio, like just to grab files and start chucking it. And all that verbal and physical violence. I mean, takes its toll on the marriage, takes its toll on kids. It took a toll on me. I took a toll on me. In Indian families, depending on the kind of parents that they are, like there's an unspoken rule. Like, they give you that look, like, they just tell you, like, if you do something and you get that look, like, right, that is not something they're supposed to. So you learn what the boundaries are. So yes, there's discipline like that. And I was easily controllable. Like, I get the look, I'm like, I'm not doing it. My oldest brother, not so much, right? So they got into more trouble, like with stuff, right? And they got punished more, and they got their asses beat more.
He's different. His genes may be calmer. I mean, I'm different. I'm more reactive. I'm more, maybe more impulsive, more reactive. Less tolerant. So we're different. He's calmer. I'm not that calm as he is.
Nobody had conversations about anything, man. Honest to God, I can't remember anything. You know how parents are today, man, they're so into kids. Like, I have no recollection of ever. I had no idea what to do with college. I had no idea. Do you know I had no idea what even an SAT was or a PSAT was? Honest to God. I remember walking down the hall with my American friend said, hey, are you taking the SATs? I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, I take this exam. I'm like, for what? It was for college. That's how ignorant I was, because I never was inquisitive about it, number one, but I didn't even know to be inquisitive, right? My parents didn't grow up here. They don't know the educational system here. So what would they know? And my mom, barely speaks English, And my dad was busy at work. So I found through my friends. So I took something called a PSAT. Didn't study for it. Took the exam. I did all right. SATs, didn't really study for it. I just went to the library and just got some SAT books, did some practice tests. I got I think I got 1130 on my SATs, which is a shitty grade by today's standards.
Right.
But I was like, whatever, And then when it came to applying to college, there was no thought into it. I only went to NYU because my friends were going to NYU, like Rajiv and those guys went there. I was like, all right, I'll go there. It wasn't until I got to college where I took a little bit of interest about, all right, what am I going to do? And then I said, I always liked medicine. Like I like science and stuff. I used to read my dad's medical textbooks. Like when I in the basement, he had his books. I'd actually thumb through them because I found them interesting.
I supported him wholeheartedly for that. Whatever money he had spent on medicine and college, I paid for it.
I said, Dad, truthfully, I said, you know what? I don't know. I mean, if money is an issue, then I'll just go to downstate. It doesn't matter. Like, I don't care. Like, it'll be a good education. My friend Marty went there, so he would have been my high school friend. Would have been in school together. And one thing I have to say, I mean, the man did extend. He's like, no, if he goes, it's a better school. You know what? We'll find a way to pay for it. Is what he said, which was a tremendous thing for me. I mean, I never had any loans, man. I'm grateful for that. And that's why I make sure both my kids are educated, and I make sure I didn't want them to have any debt. Because I appreciate what that means to be stress-free without worrying about bills and stuff or, outstanding loans. My father gave me that as a gift, for I was eternally grateful. So you know what? I wanted to give that to my kids. And that's why I support both of my children to whatever ends I have to go to the earth to do it, I will do it. Because I appreciate that, what my dad did for me.
They never took charge of their responsibility as parents. Both Yoga as well as Sachin. Mahendra was different in that respect.
I remember I could not sleep. I mean, I was so concerned about my nephews, like Pawan and these kids. Even my ex-wife's nephews, like, Samir and those guys, and when they go through, I couldn't sleep at night. I remember, thinking about, what's going to happen to these kids, so deeply concerned about them. What are they going to do with their lives? School, one's dropping out, one's doing pot, and this. That's what occupied, because I really gave a shit about these kids, I was sincerely, deeply vested in all these kids. And every time there was a crisis, I got the phone call. Well, they'll deny it today, but that's a fact,
He took care of his children.
Left foot in, you put your left foot out, you put your left foot in, and you shake your upper back. You do the funky funky, and you turn yourself around. That's right. How much does Papa love you? Tell me. How much does Papa love you?
What's this? You gonna take this to work?
Ooh, say hi. Hello. Shwari, do you see us? Huh? You are such a cutie dog. Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
And I loved my grandchildren, but because of his wife, there was some distance that I kept with his grandchildren.
Day one, even when I met her, when I dated her, I mean, I only knew her for a month before we got engaged, and there were red flags then. I tried to address those issues. I actually wanted to break up with her when we were dating only for that month, and then, she convinced me that she'd change, and her sister, the oldest one, Shafali, she was completely manipulative in the background, because she told her, you know what? Because what'd she do, right? She was not educated. She only finished high school. She married some guy who had some low-level computer job. So here her sister meets a guy who's studying to be a doctor. Let me come on. She told her, look, you're going to marry a doctor, you'll have a better life, because that's, And the reality is, I mean, years later, I found out, like, you know, that she didn't love me. You know, she never loved me. She just married me because she wanted a lifestyle. You know, it's a harsh truth, but it's a fact. You know, people, and I've heard it from, you know, other people. My best friend from high school, I even asked her at a Christmas party. I'll never forget. He told me he was with his girlfriend actually, and sitting in my old house. You know, and she asked him. He goes, "Do you love Mahendra? Do you ever love?" She goes, "No." Just as simply as you would brush off some dirt off the thing. He goes, "No." And the sad thing is, I was honest with her from fucking day one. Like, day one, I said, look, we have problems, we need to fix them. You know, I didn't want to have a kid. When she got pregnant, you know, after 6 months, I told her to get an abortion. I mean, I love my kids, but the kids know this. I mean, I shared this with them, but I didn't want to bring a kid into this mess. How can you bring a kid into it? You know, a marriage is fucked up. Like, we need to fix it. Otherwise, like, and I remember her sister called me. She called her house. I was living with my parents at that time when we had just, because I was my first year in my internship when we got married. Her sister called her oldest sister. And I heard her on the phone, because, you know, when you pick up the phone, you can hear the voice on the phone. And she must have known. She told her in Hindi, she goes, "Bacha kar lo, ban jayega." What that means is, have the kid, he'll be tied down. Because they didn't give a fuck about me. They just, you know, they weren't worried about her own sister's security. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm not going to abandon my kids. Like, you know, what are my parents going to do? I mean, I talked to them about it. Like, after a while, it was just.
So were they aware of all the things you just laid out?
I told some of the things, but after a while, like, how much can you complain to somebody? And they don't have their hands are tied, you know. And I didn't want to put my poison onto them, and, like, you know, at the end, like, you know, it would be upsetting to them. But my mother's point at that view was she didn't give a fuck about me. All she cared about really was her kids. Meaning the grandkids, meaning my two kids. That's really what she was concerned about. I don't think she really, deep in her heart, I mean, she felt bad for me, I guess, but, you know, when you have a shitty marriage yourself and you don't have any love, and, you know, that's the truth. I mean, there is no sense of a loss, right? Even my ex-wife's oldest sister said it, because many years later I even asked her, because she's divorced, and I really asked her, I confronted her one time, and I said, you know, I said, "Chef," I said, you know, "Do you ever love your husband?" or, you know, whatever. She said to me, she goes, "I don't know what love is." She goes, "The only thing I love is my sisters and my kids," is what she said to me. That's pretty sad. Like, you know, that's how you go through your life. But here's the problem with that, right? If that's what you believe, that's what you're going to teach your sisters. That's what you're going to teach your brothers. And that's the poison that trickles down from the hierarchy, right? Because you're the oldest person. You're like almost like the matriarch of the family. But that explains all the pathology in the family, because that's what the attitude about everybody is. There's no sense of loving somebody, right? Or being in a relationship for the sake of caring for somebody. You know, you're in a relationship for a gain. And that's really all their marriages, and that's why they're all failed. Because that is not, you know, that is not the glue that holds a marriage together. You know, it's a fucking prison sentence, man.
Honey, smile. What's the matter? You tired?
You obviously saw your son was very unhappy at a certain point.
या पर मैं एक बात बताऊँ, ये मेरे को ब्लेम करते हैं बेटा, ठीक है? जब मेरी चलती नहीं है, मैं अगर कुछ कहती भी हूँ ना, मेरी जब चलती नहीं है, तो मैं क्या कहूँ बताओ?
One thing that bothered me in their relationship is that she was not. I would not have accepted her as my daughter-in-law. She was different.
Did you say anything at the time, or?
I can't say anything at the time.
The only thing I'm angry about, I think the only one issue that I was ever angry with my mother about, my parents were, that when they knew I was not happy in my marriage, and even when I was dating my ex-wife and they knew her problems, like, I know if my kids were going through that shit, I would have said, "Fuck you, you're not going to marry this person. That's done. I don't give a shit. Like, that is, you're not doing that." I spent 18, 20 years of my life raising them, and I'm going to let them go into that shit show. I would never do that. I don't care if they never speak to me again. I would have put my foot down. That's where they failed me. I think they got caught up in that whole Indian thing. Oh, marry Indian girl, or, you know, like, they were just, my mother, she was scared that I'd marry a white girl. That's really what the fear was. And because of that mentality, she, you know, she was happy. Seeing all the pathology, she ignored it. It's like seeing somebody with the signs of cancer and just saying, "Oh, yeah, it's not cancer, it's just a rash." Like, that's fucked up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that angers me, like, to this day, as that's where they really failed as parents, I think. And both of them did. My mother more so, because the woman is typically more involved, the mother. I blame myself that I should have had the courage to say no. And I do blame myself for that. But when you're under that social pressure and that fucking peer pressure, you do things and you don't think clearly sometimes. But that's where I think my parents failed tremendously. All the other stuff, I don't blame them for. And I don't hold them because things that they're not aware of in terms of how to raise a child or the new environment of a foreign country. I don't hold them responsible. The woman doesn't speak English that well. My dad was busy with his work, so, fine, I fumbled around and I sort of bounced around. I figured things out. But I landed on my feet, and I'm okay with that. And I learned from my mistakes so my kids can learn from my things. But that part I do. It still angers me sometimes when I think about it. Honestly, in that respect, I think they failed me. It's like raising a child and putting his neck on a chopping block, and you watch that sword go down and you don't open your mouth. That's what I feel like.
बाद में कुछ सालों बाद बताइए प्रॉब्लम बाहर आई और इनके झगड़े भी हुए, तो उसके बाद में चली भी गई थी वो। फिर उसको बुलाया, मतलब कि भाई अच्छा नहीं लगता ऐसे भाई, तो बाबा जी ने भी समझाया, सब करा कि भाई सब ठीक हो जाएगा, ऐसे नहीं।
And I know my parents said, Mahendra, I know you met this girl, but you know what? I don't think this is a good idea. That would have been just enough for me to pull out of it. That would have just been enough for me to say, you know what? We're done. And I did. I did want to pull out of it. But people lie to you. They'll tell you they'll change and all that stuff, and they don't, It is the one thing in my life that honestly has had the most impact on my life. That very dysfunctional marriage. It wasn't even a marriage. It was really just a shit show from day one. It was just a very mentally exhausting. It was basically torture. It wasn't a relationship. It was just the day I got married, the day I got divorced was just a non-stop, experience of just being taken advantage of and mind fucked, basically. And to that, it's your life goes by and you're like, what the fuck? Like, where did my time go? Yeah, in that regard, I think I would say I resent my parents for that. And that's an honest evaluation without that. You try to forgive them. I don't carry the grudge like on a minute-to-minute basis, but when I think about it, I know I would never do that to my kids. Never do that to my kids. If my kids were in a relationship that was dysfunctional, I would say, get out. You're done. That's it. The money you lose in a divorce and all the bullshit, friends you lose or whatever, fine, You don't get your life back. That's time lost you'll never get back. I don't think my dad's ever felt comfortable expressing his true emotions to his own kids. Like I hug my son. I give him a full frontal embrace and like a bear hug, and he hug. Yeah, I've never had that with my dad. He does his, put his hand on his shoulders or my shoulders or, give me a side. Like whenever I go over there, I make it a point to give him a hug, like a side hug or something, like, hey dad, whatever. And I think that's his comfort level. I think it's just because of the way he grew up. He never had a father. His father died when he was 6 years old or 7 years old, something like that. His mom, they didn't do that sort of stuff. So where did he get affection from? He never experienced affection. Who hugged him?
I lost my father when I was in my 8th grade examination. Appearing for my 8th grade examination, I lost him. He was a sick man. He had certain problems with his stomach. So I knew that he was sick, but I didn't know how he was doing because I was in Jaipur and he came for treatment to Jaipur, and then he didn't feel good, so they took him back. So I knew inside that there was something wrong with him, but I did not feel free. To myself, I didn't feel free to speak to him. I would just observe and understand everything from a distance.
And what do you mean you didn't feel free to stick to him? What does that mean?
The way in which people express their love. here was not the way in those days to express love. I respected him, I loved him. Last year of my examination, 8th grade examination, I was in school taking my examination. Then I heard the sound of Pupaji's car in front of my school. So I knew that the car has come from there. So I finished up the exam and got a call from the headmaster. He called me downstairs. He said, "You have to go home now." It was already 12 days. Then I went to my village, then performed whatever rites had to perform up to his death. Same with my grandfather. He died too. He died before my father died. These are the only two persons who were very close to me.
Daddy started developing anger because of that. You know, and I think that was one of the reasons why he was angry. And then
his mother was uneducated, very old, old-fashioned. She's not really, she doesn't know anything about loving and how to raise the kids and all that, you know.
So he was he started getting a little introverted, but he was angry all the time. But then his friends have a drink with them and everything is lovely. Right? So now your friends become your family and your family becomes a problem.
He shows his affection different ways. Like, you know, when I come over now, like, he'll give me a side hug or, you know, I'll do the pat on the back kind of thing, you know. But, you know, the ability for him to show affection is good. Like, I see how he hugs the grandkids and his affection towards them, you know what I mean? Like, that's a good thing. Like, I never saw him do that, like, you know. So I think he's learning in all this time to learn to love and show his love for people in different ways, which is a good thing for him, I think.
I don't know what it is, but in our family, like the grandchildren, the grandfathers do great.
We all love our grandchildren more than my own children. Yeah.
And why is that? Why do you think you love your grandchildren more than your own children?
Because somehow that is how it is. It's not only with me. This is worldwide feeling. And you will realize it when you have it, your grandchildren.
So I'm like, shit, he's connected with daddy, which is good. You know, maybe daddy needs that too, more than I do. But we all need it. We all need the love.
Yeah, it's funny, like, so when I see him treat you guys the way he does, I don't get jealous. I'm like actually happy for him. I'm like, you know what he couldn't enjoy as a father, he gets to enjoy as a grandfather. That's how I sort of see it.
या तो मुझ में ही कोई कमी रही है, उसके कारण हुआ है या क्या कारण है, लेकिन क्या है कि बच्चों का जो मैंने जीवन देखा है उससे मेरे को ज़्यादा तकलीफ़ होती है कि भाई ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए था। मेरे भगवान ने दिए भी बच्चे हैं, सब कुछ है, लेकिन अब जो हो गया उसको तो कुछ नहीं कर सकता। लेकिन मैं चाहती हूँ आगे कोई भी मतलब ऐसे नहीं करे, सब अपने जिम्मेदारियों को समझें, एक दूसरे की हेल्प करें, एक दूसरे की बात को समझ के शांति से मतलब कार्य करें, बस यही है।
You live and learn, and as long as I'm alive, I know you can make a change. And in order for the generations to improve, I have to change things. I have to do things better.
But over time, through situations, through readings or whatever, I've calmed down quite a bit. Now I realize it doesn't pay to get angry. You could get into trouble. It doesn't get you anywhere. It's better to stay calm and just deal calmly.
My own way of thinking has also changed. Now I realize things should have been different with my children and me, so that we could all understand each other and try to help each other. But that's be gone now.
And do you ever see a scenario, ideally, where, let's say after this comes out and everyone hears everyone's perspectives, where the family, all 5 of you, would be able to sit down and have a meal together at some point?
कि बैठे सब जने बैठ के बात करें और करें, कौन नहीं चाहेगा, सब चाहेंगे कि भाई चलो सब जने बैठ के साथ बात करें, एक दूसरे के, पर वो तो हो नहीं सकता ना, क्योंकि सबका क्रोध नाक पे रखा है यहाँ.
I love my mother and father regardless of what they did or what happened or whatever, and the beatings and negativity and my mother and all that stuff. I mean, I still love. Yeah. I don't think there's anything that's going to take me away from that, whatever it is, because there's nothing stronger than that.
If it comes out and people don't take it the wrong way, they accept what is being said objectively, and if they want to, yeah, it's possible. Everybody can get together. You only have one life to live. You can fight, or you can have attitudes, you can have anger, or you can you can be forgiving and get together.
So, that's about it, man. That's about it. Any more questions?